Listen to these words, recorded during a 1967 lecture given by an initiatic science master, Omram Mikhail Ivanov of Bulgaria. Quote, "The Creator has planted within every creature a fragment of himself, a spark, a spirit of the same nature as himself. And thanks to this spirit, every creature can become a creator. And this means that instead of always waiting for their needs to be satisfied by some external source, human beings can work inwardly by means of their thought, their will, and their spirit to obtain the nourishing, healing elements they need. This is why the teaching I bring you is of the Spirit, of the Creator, and not of matter." Unquote. I love this quote because it speaks to a part of you that has been largely ignored throughout all of your educational pursuits and accomplishments. The key words here are a fragment of himself, a spark that lies within you, but has largely been left unexamined. This is a great image for you to begin to understand the greatness of your higher self. There is a spark of God within you that is the invisibleness I've been alluding to. It is that which you cannot grasp with the senses. It beats your heart, it grows your hair, and it keeps your lungs breathing in and out. You've become accustomed to taking it for granted while putting the major focus of your life on the physical, that is the unreal part of you. My objective in this chapter and the next is to inspire you to recognize that a spark, a tiny fragment of the creative source of the universe, is located within you, and to help you increase the power of that spark so it becomes the primary force in your everyday life. Review the first chapter and affirm your willingness to change your concept of yourself to help you recognize and increase that spark. Then dedicate yourself to exploring this higher self that I'm talking about. Your higher self is that spark, but a spark is an infinitesimal portion of your physical being. If you weigh, say, 150 pounds, that spark weighs maybe 1/100th of an ounce or 1/1,000,000th of an ounce. This is only a symbolic image because the spark is unchanging. But I'm encouraging you to conceptualize that spark of God inside of you. Imagine it growing to double its size, then a tenfold spark, then maybe a shred, then a segment, then a chunk, then a lump, then a piece, then a section. And just perceive that spark of God as the real you becoming visible through your loving and inviting attentiveness until you feel the sacred presence of your higher self as the guiding light of your life. Ultimately, as I'll talk about later, it will overtake the you that's been dominated by an ego and your sensory apparatus. That former speck of a spark will become the foundation of your life. You might conceptualize this former spark as a sacred light inside of your head that is the same size as your brain. Now you've had a big piece of God to assist you in attaining a status wherein the fulfillment of your wishes becomes a no-brainer, or perhaps you'd call it a new-brainer. This new brain is comprised exclusively of infinite God energy. In order to accomplish becoming an almighty being, your higher self, that is God, must be enlarged from a spark to a more meaningful portion of your essence. Since you are a piece of God, and therefore have that within you, you needn't doubt your own divinity. As Jesus reminds you in the New Testament, "Is it not written in your law, I have said, you are God's?" That's from the book of John 10:34. As a growing spark of God, you must be willing to say, that portion of myself that has not edged God out, that is ego, must be perfect. It is all-knowing and it is almighty. There is nothing that this higher self, that I am, cannot accomplish. Once again, let's look back at something Jesus told us. Quote, "With God, all things are possible." That's in the book of Matthew 19:26. All things are possible leaves nothing out. As my teachers in the initiatic sciences frequently reminded me, this higher self, that portion of God that is us, only begins to notice us and give us the attention we crave when we enlarge it from a tiny spark and invite that energy into our life. Your awareness that God isn't something external to you, but rather a portion of yourself, is truly a giant step in your spiritual evolution. You can tell yourself with genuine knowing, I am perfect. All forms of I am have tremendous significance. God no longer resides outside of you and no longer plays favorites. In short, you've revised humankind's image of a God created in its own egoistic idea of itself. A God who knows how to heal, yet withholds healing from some and offers it to others who are presumed to have paid some kind of dues. A God who is angry. A God who gives humans the pleasure of sexuality, but promises to burn in hell those who don't follow rules devised by other humans. A God who gives us eyes and remains invisible, but threatens damnation for those who don't believe in him. A God who demands to be paid for services with fancy temples and gold-lined costumes for his highest representative. This is a God of the ego. Your higher self is a piece of an all-loving, all-embracing, creative source. All you need do is accept that this is not something external to yourself. It resides within you. The kingdom of heaven is within. In fact, it is you. And all you need do is begin to align yourself with this divine essence. Begin to act like it acts and think like it thinks. And you will begin the process of manifesting just as it does. This is the true essence of living a life in which your wishes are fulfilled, giving your divine nature a chance.
You are not separate from the universe. Not now, not ever. The illusion of separation is the root of every wound you carry, every fear you rehearse, every moment you forget who you are. But the truth, the quiet, pulsing, radiant truth, is that everything you see is a mirror. And when you look closely enough, when you still yourself enough to really observe, you'll find that even the mirror reflects something far more vast than your reflection. It reflects your source. It reflects God. And God, too, is a mirror for you. We spend so much of our lives chasing reflections in the outer world, mistaking appearances for meaning, mistaking form for substance. But what if I told you nothing you see is random? Nothing you encounter is accidental? What if every interaction, every event, every face, every heartbreak, every moment of joy was simply another mirror showing you you? You see, the soul is not interested in blame. The soul is not interested in who's right or who's wrong. The soul is here to remember, to awaken. And one of the highest truths you'll ever remember is that life does not happen to you. It happens through you, and then it happens for you, and ultimately it happens as you. So if everything is a mirror, what do the people in your life reveal about what's unhealed in you? What do your judgments say about the parts of yourself you've yet to love? What does your impatience show you about where you've imprisoned time? And what do your resentments echo but the places you still hold yourself hostage? Every time you point a finger, your soul gently whispers, come back. Every time you criticize another, life holds up a mirror and asks, can you see yourself in this reflection? Because healing doesn't begin by changing the reflection. It begins by changing what stands before the mirror. That is you. That is consciousness. That is power. The universe is not outside of you. It is inside of you, reflecting outward. Your relationships, your experiences, your repeated patterns, they are your teachers disguised as circumstance. They are the curriculum your soul signed up for. And the faster you stop trying to erase the mirror and start cleansing the image within, the more peace, power, and liberation you will discover. But most of us are terrified of this truth because it means we are responsible. It means the storm is not out there, it's within our interpretation of it. It means the betrayal you feel isn't only about what someone did, it's about what you continue to do to yourself when you refuse to forgive. It means that what you resent in others might still be alive in you, dormant, unacknowledged, or simply unloved. That is not a condemnation. It is your liberation knocking. The ego resists this fiercely because to the ego, everything is about control. It wants to assign fault. It wants to keep you the victim. It wants to ensure you stay separate from them, from love, from God. But the soul does not operate in that dimension. The soul does not seek to control. It seeks to surrender, to return, to remember that it is already whole. And when you begin to live from the soul instead of the ego, every mirror becomes sacred. You'll find that even your enemies are mirrors. That the ones who wounded you the deepest were the ones carrying your medicine in the most painful packaging. That the people who triggered you were unconsciously illuminating the places you still needed to integrate. They were not here to destroy you. They were here to awaken you to yourself. And when you begin to see through the eyes of the soul, everything shifts. Suddenly, your life is no longer a chaotic sequence of random events. It becomes a sacred unfolding, a living, breathing revelation of consciousness, a mirror house made of grace, reflecting to you all the forgotten parts of your wholeness so you may remember who you truly are. Now here is the greatest mirror of all God, but not the God of fear, shame, or punishment, not the God wrapped in dogma or trapped in religion. No, the God I speak of is the one beyond name, beyond form, beyond doctrine, the God that is not outside of you, but within you and through you and as you. This God does not judge. This God reflects. When you look into the face of divinity, you are looking at your highest self, not your ego, not your wounds, but your true essence, love, timelessness, eternal being. God is not separate from you. God is the mirror of your awakened self. And the more you return to that space, the more you shed the illusion of separation, the more clearly you see everything has always been one. Even the darkness is a mirror not of evil, but of the light that's been hidden, waiting to be remembered. Even the chaos is a mirror not of cruelty, but of the disorder within that seeks integration. Even the silence, the moments you call empty, are mirrors of the vastness within you that words cannot touch. So if you are struggling, look not for someone to blame, but for a mirror to understand. If you are suffering, stop asking life to change its reflection and ask yourself, what energy within me is being mirrored here? You are the painter and the canvas, the sculptor and the stone. You are the dreamer and the dream, the ocean and the drop. You are the one standing before the mirror and the mirror itself. Everything is showing you something. Everything is inviting you to awaken. Every moment is sacred when you understand. Nothing is random and nothing is separate. There is only reflection. There is only truth. There is only God mirrored in all things. And so the question becomes not, why is this happening to me, but what in me is being shown here? That shift, that single sacred shift, is the doorway to your freedom. Because when you stop trying to change the outer and instead begin to illuminate the inner, your entire world transforms without force, without demand, without resistance. For the mirror of life cannot reflect what is no longer there. If you release anger within, the world no longer offers it back to you. If you forgive the part of yourself still chained to judgment, the world ceases to echo condemnation. If you love the part of you that felt unloved, life begins to reflect that love everywhere you turn. We do not see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And what we are is always being broadcast into the mirror of our reality. It shows up in our language, in our habits, in our choices. It shows up in how we greet the morning and how we treat the stranger. It shows up in how we pray and, more importantly, in how we listen. Because life is always speaking. Life is always revealing. Life is always holding up a mirror, asking, will you look deeper this time? Now hear this, everything you love in others is a reflection of what's already awakened in you. Every time you admire courage, integrity, gentleness, power, grace, you're seeing your own soul already shining. And every time something disturbs you, it too is a pointer, not a punishment, but a mirror, softly or sometimes harshly reflecting what is left unresolved within your own field of awareness. It is tempting to recoil, to cover the mirror when it shows you something unpleasant. But remember, the mirror is not attacking you. It is not judging you. It is simply showing. That's all a mirror ever does. And that is the grace of life. That is the generosity of existence. Nothing is hidden forever. Everything will eventually rise to the surface, not to shame you, but to free you. And what is freedom if not the ability to stand naked before the mirror and say, this too is me. And I choose to love what I see, not because it is perfect, but because it is real, because it is mine, because it is God in form, seeking to know itself once more. You were not born to fit into the image others painted for you. You were born to remember that you are both the artist and the masterpiece. And when you live like that, when you see every face, every sunrise, every sorrow, as part of the divine tapestry reflecting you back to you, you begin to walk through the world, not as someone lost, but as someone lit from within. You stop reacting. You begin responding. You stop blaming. You begin blessing. You stop running. And you begin returning again and again to the stillness, the silence, the sacredness within. And in that sacredness, you meet yourself not as the character you've been playing, but as the awareness behind the role, the timeless presence, the watcher of thoughts, not the thinker, the light behind the eyes, not the mask that wears the face. And in that moment of seeing, truly seeing, the mirror vanishes. Because there is no more separation. There is only oneness. Only the divine meeting itself in form. That is why the greatest act of healing is self-honesty. To tell the truth first to yourself. To say, yes, I see where I've held on to pain. Yes, I see where I projected my wounds onto others. Yes, I see how I made God in my image, instead of remembering I was made in His. And then to say, and I am willing to return. Return not to the story, but to the source. Return not to the pain, but to the power behind it. Return not to the identity, but to the infinite awareness that was never bound by any name, title, or label. You are not here to fix the mirror. You are here to clean your vision. You are not here to manipulate the reflection. You are here to dissolve the false self so that what reflects is only love. And love, true love, is the highest mirror of all. For when you see through the eyes of love, you no longer search for yourself in the world. You see the world as yourself. The child crying, that is you. The elder smiling quietly in the park, that is you. The stranger on the train. The enemy you swore you'd never forgive. The friend who stayed. The lover who left. All of them are you. Different expressions, different faces, same essence. God dances behind every eye you meet. And if you want to see God, if you truly want to encounter the divine, stop looking upward, stop looking outward, start looking inward, and then look gently into the faces of all you encounter. Because what you are seeing is the face of your own awareness filtered through their form. That is the sacred play. That is the divine illusion. That is the truth the sages whisper and the mystics sing. God is not hiding. God is reflecting. And the mirror is everywhere. And now, I invite you to consider, what would happen if you stopped resisting the mirrors life keeps placing before you? What would shift if, instead of turning away from what triggers you, you leaned into it gently as if it were a guide? What if you began thanking the people and experiences that once caused pain, not for the suffering they seemed to bring, but for the awareness they stirred awake in you? Because in truth, you don't grow from the comfort of the reflection. You grow from the tension it creates inside you, the friction between who you think you are and who your soul is, urging you to remember that friction is holy, that discomfort is grace. That mirror, no matter how dark, is sacred. We are taught to fear what makes us uncomfortable, but discomfort is the invitation to heal, to see, to awaken, and often The clearest mirrors are not the ones that flatter us, they are the ones that challenge us to evolve. When someone dismisses you, do you retreat or do you remember your worth? When life delays your plans, do you curse the timing or trust the unfolding? When someone betrays your trust, do you spiral into resentment or rise into deeper boundaries and clarity? Each of these is a mirror, and each offers you a choice. Will you react from the ego or respond from the soul? Will you repeat the pattern or rewrite the story? Will you judge the mirror or will you bless it? You are the alchemist here. You are the one who can turn the lead of reaction into the gold of awareness. But only if you're willing to stop projecting your pain outward and start reflecting it inward with love. The mirror is not here to trap you. It's here to reveal you. It's here to return you to the awareness that was never broken to begin with. That is why healing is never really about others. It's about reclaiming the pieces of yourself that you left behind in stories of victimhood, in chapters of shame, in roles you were taught to play but never truly chose. Healing is remembering, and when you remember, you return to your wholeness, to your sovereignty, to your divinity. And here's the paradox. Once you take responsibility for your reflection, you free others from having to carry the weight of your unhealed projections. You stop making others the villain in your story. You stop needing them to change so you can feel okay. You no longer require the world to bend to your preferences to feel peace because the peace you seek is now generated from within, not borrowed, not conditional, but sourced from your own alignment. That is the mirror of power. And once you step into it, truly step into it, your life stops being a series of reactions and starts becoming a sacred expression of consciousness in motion. Look around you right now. Every object, every color, every texture, every sound, all of it is part of the divine mirror of this moment. Not random, not ordinary, but alive, vibrant, pulsing with intelligence. The tree is not just a tree, it's the breath of the universe captured in form. The sky is not just weather, it's the canvas of the infinite, painting you a message of surrender every single day. The stranger walking past is not a stranger, it's another fragment of God playing their part, mirroring back to you what you still seek or what you've already found. And then there's the silence, the great mirror of the soul. In silence, the ego has nothing to latch onto. It cannot perform. It cannot control. It cannot hide. Silence strips away all masks and shows you the vast, empty, luminous presence that has been there all along, the you beneath the thoughts, the you beyond the noise, the you that is not bound by body, name, or past. That you, the eternal you, is the one God sees when he looks in the mirror. Not your doubts, not your guilt, not your status or titles, but your essence, your light, your being. And that is why you were never meant to worship a God outside of yourself. You were meant to merge with the reflection of God within yourself. Because the more you awaken, the more clearly you see the line between you and God begins to dissolve. Not out of arrogance, but out of reverence. Not because you are God in totality, but because you are not separate from God in any way. Just as the wave is not the ocean, but it is never not the ocean. Just as the flame is not the fire, but it is never apart from its source. So too are you. You are a reflection of the divine, unique, radiant, and indispensable. But the moment you forget this, you begin to suffer. You begin to believe the mirror lies. You begin to chase external validation instead of internal truth. And the more you chase, the more fragmented you feel, because you're looking into the mirror of the world, asking it to tell you who you are when you had the answer all along, resting silently within. So the real invitation is this: stop chasing the reflection. Start becoming the light that casts it. The mirror does not define you. It reveals you. And what it reveals is always a gift, even when it comes disguised as a loss, a heartbreak, or a delay. Because every delay is a mirror of trust. Every heartbreak is a mirror of deeper love waiting to be born. Every loss is a mirror of spaciousness, inviting something more aligned. And every person who leaves is a mirror of the part of you that's ready to grow beyond that chapter. There are no accidents in a world made of mirrors, only revelations. And once you begin to truly see, not just look, but see with the eyes of the soul, the entire fabric of your life transforms. Not because the scenery changes, but because the seer awakens. The mountains remain mountains, but now they speak to you. The winds still blow, but now they whisper truth. The faces in your life do not shift overnight, but what they represent becomes infinitely more sacred. Because you begin to live with awareness, you begin to see the entire universe as a living mirror of consciousness dancing for you. You no longer beg the world to change, because you realize the world is a mirror of your own being. You no longer demand others to be more loving, more honest, more kind, because you have become those things within yourself. And so life reflects them back without effort. This is not magic. This is alignment. This is spiritual law. The world rearranges itself to reflect the vibration you hold. You radiate resentment, and resentment meets you in traffic, in conversation, in your own skin. You radiate peace, and peace echoes back in synchronicities, in quiet moments, in how strangers treat you. The mirror is always honest. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't accuse. It simply reflects what you are being, not what you are pretending. So the question is not, what do I want the world to give me, but rather, what am I offering to the mirror of life? If you want more love, become love. If you want more truth, speak truth, live truth, embody truth. If you want peace, stop clinging to the stories that keep you at war with yourself. Because life cannot give you what you are unwilling to become. It is not because life is cruel. It is because life is lawful. Because the mirror cannot project something that isn't first offered in its light. And in that, there is no punishment, only feedback, only clarity, only divine reflection. There is such freedom in this, when you no longer look outside yourself for your source of peace, joy, or worth. When you recognize that everything out there is simply a feedback loop of what's alive in here, then you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You become the conscious creator of your experience, not by controlling outcomes, but by aligning your inner state with truth. And that alignment, that deep, soulful alignment, is the greatest gift you can offer to this world. Because when you are aligned with the highest in you, you automatically reflect the highest in others. Without even trying, you become a mirror not of your pain, but of your peace. You become a mirror not of your ego, but of the divine presence within you. And people feel it, not through your words, but through your energy, your presence, your silent being. That's why true spiritual transformation is not loud. It does not need applause or validation. It happens quietly, like the sunrise. It breaks gently across the sky of your inner world. And suddenly, everything you touch begins to glow with new light. This is what the awakened soul knows. I do not need to change the mirror. I only need to return to the truth of what I am. You are not your story. You are not your past. You are not your wounds, your labels, or your roles. You are awareness. You are consciousness. You are the reflection of God remembering itself in form. And every moment of your life, every seemingly small encounter is an opportunity to choose that remembrance again, to wake up again, to look at the mirror and say, there I am. Thank you for showing me what I had forgotten. Even the difficult people, even the losses, even the moments where nothing seems to make sense, they are all mirrors calling you home. Home is not a place. It is a state, a knowing, a quiet, unwavering awareness that you are already whole. So when life feels overwhelming, when your reflection seems distorted by fear or pain, pause, breathe, go inward, not to escape, but to realign. Because the clearer your inner vision, the clearer the outer reflection becomes. And when you reach that place, when your inner world becomes a sanctuary, not a battleground, the mirror no longer frightens you because there's nothing left to hide, nothing left to prove, only presence, only truth, only light. You begin to live as a mirror of love itself, not because you have no flaws, but because you've stopped seeing yourself through the eyes of separation. You've stopped mistaking the mirror for the identity. You've stopped trying to fix your reflection and started embracing your essence. And that, my friend, is when you become the clearest mirror of all the kind that doesn't reflect surface appearances, but reflects back the soul. The kind of mirror that reminds others of who they really are. The kind of mirror that says, you are not broken, you are not lost, you are simply remembering. And in your reflection, others begin to remember too. This is how you heal the world. Not by demanding it change, not by condemning it for its darkness, but by becoming the light within yourself so that all who see you remember that the light lives in them too. Everything is a mirror, including God. And the more you soften into that truth, the more clearly you see that the face of God is not just in temples or scriptures or statues. It's in your breath. It's in your neighbor's eyes. It's in the stranger on the bus. It's in the hand that trembles and the heart that forgives. It's in the tears you shed when you finally realize there is nowhere. God is not. There is nowhere God is not, and there is nothing you are not reflecting when you open your heart wide enough to see through the illusion. Even the mess is divine. Even the uncertainty, the grief, the ache of being human, it's all part of the sacred dance of remembrance. The ego says this shouldn't be happening. The soul says this too is part of the mirror. Let it show you something. And what a miracle it is when you no longer reject what life places in front of you. When you no longer need to label something as good or bad, but instead say, this is here and so am I, and together we will understand. That is the moment the reflection changes. Because now, the mirror is no longer bouncing back your resistance, it is amplifying your acceptance. And that acceptance is the first step into freedom. To accept does not mean to agree. It does not mean you condone every behavior or tolerate every pain without action. It means you stop waging war with what is. It means you allow the reflection to be there without denial. And from that space, you begin to choose not from fear, but from clarity, not from lack, but from wholeness, not from reaction, but from remembrance. You begin to choose relationships that mirror your inner peace, not your unhealed chaos. You begin to walk into rooms and feel yourself radiating instead of searching. You stop chasing love because you finally see that you've been the source all along. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So become what you seek. And let the mirror reflect that becoming. Let every rejection reflect your rising self-worth. Let every heartbreak reflect the deepening of your capacity to love. Let every delay reflect the divine orchestration that sees what you cannot. Let every frustration be the teacher reminding you to let go of how you thought it should be and fall in love with how it is. This is the sacred mirror of life. It is always loving, always honest, always evolving with you. And in its deepest reflection, when the illusion is stripped away, you do not find a world staring back at you. You find stillness, silence, God. That is why so many mystics and sages withdraw into the silence, not to escape the world, but to meet the original mirror, the still, unchanging presence within which all things arise and return. And once you've seen that, once you've touched the formless essence behind the form, everything else in life becomes an echo of that one sacred truth. I am not this name, this body, this history. I am the one who watches, who loves, who creates, who returns. I am the divine in disguise. And so are you. So is your neighbor. So is your child, your parent, your partner, your past. Even the pain is sacred when you understand that it too reflects an unmet part of your light. Can you imagine living like this every day? Not as a theory, but as a felt truth. To wake up and see everything not as a problem to fix, but as a mirror to receive. It would change how you walk through the world. You would no longer argue with reality. You would no longer defend yourself so fiercely. You would no longer need to prove or persuade or punish, because when you live as a mirror of peace, the war ends first within, then without. And that's what the world needs now. Not more opinions, not more noise, not more fear masquerading as control. It needs mirrors of grace, mirrors of compassion, mirrors of presence, mirrors of God, not the God we argue about, but the God we reflect when we remember who we are. You don't have to preach it, you just have to live it. Live as if everything is a mirror, because it is. Live as if God is not a destination, but a reflection, because He is. Live as if your presence is enough to remind someone else of their light, because it is. You are not here to fix the world. You are here to become so true, so real, so aligned that the world naturally begins to shift its reflection. This is not about perfection. It's about presence. This is not about never falling. It's about seeing each fall as another reflection calling you higher. And when you begin to live this way, gently, honestly, spiritually awake, you discover that life begins to speak to you in whispers. Synchronicities arrive like echoes of your inner voice. Miracles become commonplace, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You've stopped seeing through the eyes of fear. You've stopped projecting shadows and started illuminating them. You've stopped running from your reflection and started bowing to it. That's what this moment is inviting you to do. To stop, to breathe, to soften, and to really look at what life is showing you, because the reflection is not there to shame you, it's there to free you. It's saying, beloved, this too is you, and you are safe to heal now. Even the ugliest mirror is a blessing when held with love, because it reveals the wound, and once you can see the wound, you can offer it the one thing it's always wanted: your presence, your forgiveness, your truth. You do not have to fight your reflection. You simply have to meet it gently, as you would a child who has forgotten who they are, because that's what you are sometimes. That's what we all are sometimes. A divine child staring into the mirror of this world, trying to remember, I am not the pain. I am not the past. I am not the mask. I am the love that sees it all and still says, I am. And when at last you are tired of running, tired of defending, tired of trying to rearrange the mirror to fit the fractured image you've held, you'll come to stillness. Not because life broke you, but because it gently brought you back to the truth you had abandoned. You'll sit not in despair, but in surrender. Not in defeat, but in the vast, sacred openness of awakening. And it will be there in that sacred quiet that you'll see the clearest reflection of all. Not your face, not your body, not your name, but your being. The light behind the thoughts, the awareness behind the eyes, the presence that cannot be possessed, only lived. And in that presence, you'll know, I was never the reflection. I was the one reflecting. I was never the story. I was the space it played within. I was never the broken glass. I was the light that passed through it. And then it will all make sense, not as an idea, but as a felt, trembling, knowing in your chest. God was never hiding. God was reflecting. God was in your heartbreak, your joy, your silence, your breath, your ordinary mornings, and your sleepless nights. God was in the mirror, all along, not watching you, but being you. And all the mirrors you shattered in anger, all the reflections you rejected in shame, all the images you chased in longing, none of it was wrong. None of it was wasted. It was the path. It was the invitation. It was the divine curriculum bringing you back home, not to who you were told to be, but to who you always were. A soul made of light, shaped in love, reflecting infinity. When you know this, truly know it, the kind of knowing that doesn't speak, but vibrates in your cells, your eyes change. You no longer look to condemn or compare or control. You look to see. You look to honor. You look to reflect what is holy in everyone and everything, even in the things that once scared you, especially in the things that once scared you. You begin to understand that everything that ever came into your life was not to test your worth, but to remind you of it. That even the chaos was organized by grace. That every soul you ever met, friend, lover, stranger, adversary, was a mirror sent to polish your own, sent to show you something, sent to reflect the infinite in you that had temporarily forgotten its origin. You begin to see that the world is not broken, it is covered in mirrors, begging to be looked into with love instead of judgment. And your life, your precious, messy, miraculous life, is not a mistake, but a mosaic of mirrors reflecting every shade of your divinity. The sorrow, it showed you depth. The betrayal, it taught you boundaries. The silence, it reintroduced you to your own voice. The waiting, it gave you back time. The loss, it turned you toward eternity. And the mirror, again and again, never lied. It only waited for you to see with new eyes. So now, breathe. You are here, fully here. And everything is showing you, not the surface you, not the striving you, but the you that existed before any mask, before any fear, before any role was given or claimed. That you is holy. That you is whole. That you is a mirror of God. And there's no need to search anymore. No need to wrestle with reflections. No need to edit your soul to fit into someone else's lens. The mirror is clear. The message is simple. You are not apart from life. You are not apart from love. You are not apart from God. You are what God looks like in this form, in this time, in this breath. You are what love chose to reflect when it said, "Let there be light." So walk softly now, with your heart open and your spirit grounded. Speak gently, for everyone you meet is facing a mirror of their own. Look tenderly, for in every face is the light you once forgot and now remember. Live fully. For this moment is your most honest reflection. And when you pass a mirror, pause, not to critique, not to adjust, but to bow. For in that reflection, in those eyes, in that breath, you are seeing what God sees. When God looks in the mirror, and that is enough. That is everything. That is the truth that sets you free. Now go, not to chase your reflection, but to become the light that no longer needs one. Let the mirror dissolve. Let the self dissolve. Let only love remain. Let only God remain. And let the silence now be your final mirror, so wide, so still, so whole, that you no longer see yourself at all, only the light, only the light. There is a weight that no hand can measure and no scale can define. It does not rest on your shoulders, but you feel it pressing down. It does not bind your ankles, yet it keeps you from rising. And it is this weight, invisible, yet undeniable, that keeps so many of us from taking the flight into peace, into purpose, into freedom. It is the weight of what we refuse to release. The stories we rehearse, the wounds we keep fresh, the guilt we cradle like a memory we believe we must protect. And though we long to soar, we stay grounded because we've convinced ourselves that to let go is to forget, but forgetting is not the way forward. Releasing is. You cannot take flight while dragging yesterday behind you like a rusted anchor. You cannot rise into the light of your divine essence while gripping the shadows of resentment. The soul was not designed for heaviness. The soul was made to move like wind through skylight, spacious, free, but ego convinces us that our identity depends on the weight we carry, that our suffering is who we are, that our hurt makes us real. And so we hold on, we grip tightly to the pain, thinking it gives us meaning. But I ask you now, What has pain truly given you, besides more of itself? You were not born into this world to suffer endlessly under the burden of your past. You were not sent here by Source to collect wounds like medals and wear your trauma like a crown of proof. You were born to remember that you are already whole, already enough, already free. But you cannot awaken to that truth if your hands are full of what no longer serves you. Flight requires emptiness. Not emptiness in the sense of lack, but the kind of emptiness that is sacred, the emptiness of surrender, of openness, of trust. Birds do not rise by adding more weight to their wings. They rise because they were never meant to carry anything but the wind. And you, dear soul, were never meant to carry all that you're holding. Let go, not because it erases the past, but because the past was never meant to be your prison. Let go of who they said you were. Let go of what didn't happen the way you hoped. Let go of the apology that never came. Let go of the outcome you never received. Let go of the belief that you are broken. You are not broken. You are burdened, and there's a great difference. A bird with a stone in its beak is not incapable of flight. It simply needs to drop what it's holding. And the most powerful act you can perform in this lifetime is to unclench your spiritual fists and release what you've clung to for far too long. We live in a world that glorifies accumulation of things, of titles, of experiences, but also of wounds, of grievances, of stories. But your path to peace is subtraction, not addition. Every spiritual master, every awakened soul, every truly liberated being will tell you it's not what you gain that sets you free, it's what you release. The Buddha did not awaken by becoming more. He awakened by becoming less identified with form, with desire, with self. What are you willing to become less of so that you can become more of what you truly are? Are you willing to be less right so you can be more peaceful? Are you willing to be less certain so you can be more trusting? Are you willing to be less attached so you can be more free? Because to fly, you must let the heaviness fall away. And the heaviest thing you carry is the belief that you must carry it. There is a sacred law of the universe that is always at work. The more you resist letting go, the more you attract situations that force you to. Because your soul knows what your ego denies that your healing is in the release. That freedom is not granted by anything outside you. It is unveiled when you unbind yourself from within. So many people pray for peace but refuse to put down the sword. So many seek happiness while holding on to what hurts. But you cannot have both. You cannot live in the light and feed the shadows. You cannot ascend while gripping the ground, and you cannot evolve while protecting your pain. You have a choice. And this moment, this very breath, is the threshold. You can continue to identify with your wounds. You can keep rehearsing the stories of what they did, what you lost, what didn't go your way. Or you can stop. You can take a holy pause and you can say to yourself, I've carried this long enough. I don't need this to be me anymore. This is not denial. This is liberation. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is wisdom. Releasing is not passive. It is powerful. It is not forgetting the past. It is understanding that your past does not have the authority to define your future unless you keep giving it the microphone. You came here to transcend, to transmute, to rise beyond, not to escape life, but to remember who you are within it. And you are not the hurt you experienced. You are the awareness that held it. You are not the betrayal. You are the witness. You are not the grief. You are the vast presence in which that grief arose and passed. You are not the weight. You are the sky. And nothing that happened in your story is heavy enough to keep you from remembering your true nature unless you decide it is. Take a moment now, not with your mind, but with your heart. Ask yourself quietly, What have I made heavier than it needs to be? What story are you still living inside of that no longer matches your vision of peace? What label, what memory, what name or identity have you fused with your sense of self, and does it still serve your highest path? If it doesn't, let it go. If it hurts, bless it and let it go. If it stirs up anger, acknowledge it and let it go. If it makes you feel like less than the infinite soul you are, breathe deeply and let it go. No one will do this for you. This is your sacred responsibility. No one else is inside your consciousness with a broom, sweeping out the resentment, the doubt, the guilt. Only you can do that. And you do it not because others deserve it, but because you do. You deserve peace. You deserve to wake up unburdened. You deserve to feel light. And flight, true spiritual flight, is what happens when the soul remembers that its natural state is freedom. You are not your wounds. You are not your fears. You are not the broken dreams or the roads that didn't lead where you hoped. You are the one who has survived it all and now stands at the edge of a new becoming. But you can't take off until you release what weighs you down. The caterpillar must surrender the ground before it becomes the butterfly. The leaf must release the tree to dance with the wind. And the soul must release the ego's grip to remember it was never confined to begin with. Release is the sacred act of trust. It is saying to the universe, I no longer choose to carry what you never asked me to hold. You don't heal by holding tighter. You heal by surrendering. And as you surrender, a miracle occurs. The heart begins to lighten, the breath deepens, the mind softens, the world looks less threatening, love finds you more easily, joy visits more often. And suddenly the life you were meant to live is no longer on hold because you stopped carrying the delay disguised as pain. You are not behind, you are not late, you are exactly where you need to be to remember the sky has always been waiting for you to rise. So often we say we want to be free, but what we really mean is we want to be free on our terms. We want to let go, but only if we know what will come next. We want to trust, but only if we can control the outcome. And this is where most souls stall. Not because life isn't offering us wings, but because we're still trying to fly while dragging the ground behind us. But let me ask you this. Has clinging ever brought you peace? Has gripping ever led to grace? Or have you noticed that every time you let go, really let go, the next step appeared more clearly, the burden grew lighter, and something inside you finally exhaled? The irony of the spiritual path is that we do not grow by adding more. We grow by shedding what was never us to begin with. Not one layer of pain was your true self. Not one scar defined you. Not one fearful thought ever spoke with the voice of your soul. And yet, we identify with them because we've forgotten the art of being rather than becoming. We think we must become something extraordinary. But the soul is already extraordinary. The only task is to remove what clouds that remembrance, like a sculptor chipping away at marble to reveal the figure within your journey. It's not about chasing something new. It's about uncovering what has always been there. Your divine essence, and this essence is weightless. You do not need to fix yourself. You only need to free yourself. You don't need to gather more knowledge. You need to unlearn the lies. You don't need to become powerful, you already are. You simply need to drop the thoughts, the judgments, the traumas, and the identities that told you otherwise. The ego says, you must be more. The soul whispers, you already are. And when you listen closely, you will hear that whisper underneath every heartbeat, every breath, every still moment where you're not trying to be anything, you are simply present. In that moment, you are flying. Because flight is not a destination, it is a state of being. It is alignment with who you truly are beneath the noise. Now, you may ask, how do I begin to let go? You begin by noticing, notice when a thought carries heaviness. Notice when a memory returns not to heal you, but to punish you. Notice when a belief makes your chest tight or your energy dim. That is not truth. That is ego disguised as memory. And you have the power right here, right now, to witness it, thank it for its role, and release it like a bird from the cage of your mind. This is not a one-time act. It is a sacred practice. Every day, you must ask yourself, does this thought serve my flight? Does this feeling expand me or bind me? Is this belief lifting me or holding me down? If it is not helping you soar, it is not coming from your highest self. Release it. You don't need it. And in its place, choose a lighter thought, a loving thought, a truer thought. Choose gratitude over grievance. Choose faith over fear. Choose now over then. And choose to see every single moment of your life, even the painful ones, as teachers rather than burdens. Because when you shift your perception, what once weighed you down becomes the very force that lifts you. Do you see the paradox? What was once pain becomes purpose. What was once failure becomes foundation. What was once sorrow becomes spaciousness. But only when you stop resisting, only when you stop identifying with it as you. And in that sacred shift, the alchemy of awakening your soul begins to remember you were never the wound. You were always the healer. You were never the broken piece. You were always the whole. You were never the story. You were always the silent awareness in which the story unfolded. And you were never meant to carry it all. That was never your purpose. So ask yourself now, what is the weight I've been carrying that I no longer wish to bring into tomorrow? Perhaps it's the weight of comparison, the belief that you must measure your worth against others, that if someone else succeeds, you've somehow failed, that your path must look like theirs to be valid. But the truth is, no two souls have the same sky to fly in. You have your own direction, your own design, your own sacred winds. And when you stop comparing your flight to someone else's, you begin to soar in your own unique rhythm. Or perhaps it's the weight of shame, the echo of past choices you no longer align with. But hear this with all your heart. You are not your past. You are the awareness that learned from it. Guilt serves no one when it becomes a home. Let it be a guide, not a jail. Take the lesson, release the judgment, and free yourself. The soul does not evolve by condemning itself. It evolves by choosing love again and again. Maybe the weight you carry is anger that hot, consuming fire that promises strength but only burns the vessel that holds it. Anger often masks grief, and grief is love with nowhere to go. Let it go. Not for them, for you. Because you were not born to be consumed by flames. You were born to be illuminated by light. Or perhaps it's the weight of the unknown, the fear of what you can't control, can't see, can't predict. But my friend, life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be trusted. Faith is the wings, uncertainty is the sky, and trust is the wind beneath it all. When you stop needing to know where you're going, you finally arrive in the now, and the now is the only place you ever truly had to be. So much of what we carry isn't ours to hold. We carry expectations we never agreed to, roles we never wanted, pain passed down through generations. But just because it's been handed to you does not mean you have to carry it forward. The chain ends when you say it does. The pattern dissolves when you choose to wake up. And waking up isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's simply a moment of quiet clarity when you sit alone with your breath and realize, I'm done carrying what doesn't feel like love. That's the moment the flight begins. And once you taste it, even once, you will never forget what it feels like to be free. There is something miraculous that happens when you no longer resist the falling away, when you no longer mourn what is leaving, but bless it on its way. In that holy space, you are not losing, you are remembering. You are not being emptied. You are being refined. The acorn must crack for the oak to emerge. The shell must break for the light to pour in. And yes, it feels like loss, but in truth, it is birth. The death of who you are not is the beginning of who you've always been. Do not grieve what you release. It was never yours to keep. You are not here to hoard old identities. You are here to embody truth. And truth is light. Truth is weightless. Truth needs no defense, no protection, no mask. The most powerful thing you can do in a world obsessed with appearance is to become weightless, to become real, to say, I don't need to hold this story anymore. I don't need to defend this pain. I don't need to explain why I'm healing. I only need to return to peace. Because peace does not argue. Peace does not beg. Peace does not carry a ledger of wrongs. It does not keep score. Peace simply is. And when you stop trying to earn it, when you stop believing it must be deserved, you realize peace is your natural state. You were never without it. You were only distracted. The distractions came in many forms. The noise of comparison, the addiction to busyness, the need to be seen, the compulsion to be understood. But peace never left you. It was waiting quietly underneath the rubble of all that trying. Flight is not about rising above others. It is about rising above the noise, the inner dialogue that says, you're not enough, you haven't done enough, you don't deserve rest. That voice is not the voice of God. That is the voice of conditioning. And the moment you stop identifying with it, you begin to fly. Because flight isn't about escaping life, it's about engaging life from a higher vantage point. When a bird soars above the storm, it's not avoiding the sky, it's simply rising to where the storm no longer reaches. And so must you. There will always be chaos on the ground, always some drama, some fear, some grievance pulling at your feet. But you are not your feet, you are your wings. And your wings are made of faith, of surrender, of the deep knowing that you are carried by something greater than circumstance. What is this something greater? Call it what you will. God, Source, the Tao, divine intelligence. The name matters less than the experience of it. And the experience of it is this: peace without reason, joy without cause, love without condition. When you rest in that space, you will realize nothing was ever missing. You just couldn't feel it through the weight you were carrying. Release is the doorway to the divine. You do not need to beg the universe for peace. You need only make space for it. Peace does not need to be created. It only needs to be uncovered. Imagine your soul as a radiant sun always shining. The clouds of resentment, fear, guilt, and control only obscure it, never extinguish it. The work is not to chase light. The work is to dissolve clouds. And how do you dissolve a cloud? Not with force, not with war, with awareness. Awareness is the great dissolver. When you see clearly what you've been carrying without judgment, without shame, the weight begins to lift. So take a breath now and simply ask, what am I ready to see? What truth have I avoided? Because I feared what it would ask me to release. Perhaps it's the truth that your identity is not in your trauma. Perhaps it's the truth that your worth is not defined by your productivity. Perhaps it's the truth that your pain has been a teacher, not a punishment. Or perhaps it's the truth that you're allowed to let go, even if no one else says sorry. There are no prerequisites to freedom. There is only your decision, your inner yes. And the moment you say yes to release, the sky opens, the burdens loosen, and your wings begin to stretch again. But the ego will not go quietly. It will tell you, if you let go, you'll be exposed. If you release control, you'll fall. If you forgive, you'll be weak. None of that is true. It is the ego that fears the sky because it cannot survive in openness. The ego feeds on structure, on story, on certainty. But the soul is water. The soul is wind. The soul is light. It cannot be contained. And when you live from soul, you do not need to know. You only need to be. There is an ancient wisdom that lives inside you, a compass that doesn't use logic but resonance. You feel it when you are near truth. You feel it when you are near joy. You feel it when something heavy suddenly feels light, and you know this is the path. Follow that. That is your wings speaking, and they will never lead you astray. But you must be willing to silence the noise, to step away from the collective panic, the chronic comparison, the constant mental commentary. You must dare to pause, to breathe, to listen inwardly, because in that space, the divine speaks, not with thunder, but with stillness, not with answers, but with presence. And that presence is what lifts you. You are not waiting for the sky to open. You are remembering that you are already in it. The weight you've been carrying is not keeping you grounded. It's keeping you distracted from the fact that you are already soaring. You just haven't opened your eyes to it. The more you release, the clearer you see, the lighter you become, and the more you begin to trust not the future, not the outcome, but yourself, your soul, your center. This is the liberation the saints spoke of. The freedom the mystics danced in, the peace the sages pointed to when they said, "Be still and know." Know what? Know that you are already home. Know that the wings were never outside of you. Know that everything you've ever sought is not in the distance, it is within. But it cannot be felt while carrying weight that was never meant to be yours. So lay it down, beloved soul. Lay down the proving. Lay down the defending. Lay down the striving. Lay down the waiting for permission. You are allowed to be light. You are allowed to be free. You are allowed to fly, not someday, not when it all makes sense, not when they apologize, but now. Now is your moment. Now is your portal. Now is the beginning of the rest of your flight. When the soul begins to remember its weightlessness, a quiet revolution takes place. Not in the external world, but in the inner kingdom. This is the true uprising, not against others, not against life, but against the false self you've been conditioned to carry. This uprising is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It simply refuses to carry what is no longer aligned with light. And in this refusal, a powerful truth emerges. You are not here to hold on. You are here to flow through. You are not a container for pain. You are a vessel for presence. And presence is too sacred to be filled with what is no longer real. So if it no longer feels like love, it no longer belongs in your hands. If it no longer resonates with peace, it no longer belongs in your heart. And if it no longer brings you closer to truth, it no longer belongs in your mind. You came to this earth not to collect, but to remember. And memory, true memory, is not about the past. It is about your origin, the divine essence that preceded all experience, all trauma, all identity. The light you were before the name, before the wound, before the story. That light has never been dimmed, only buried. And every act of letting go is an excavation, a return, a resurrection. The ego will call it loss, but the soul knows better. The soul calls it rebirth. Yes, rebirth. You will be reborn many times in this life, not just once. And each rebirth will cost you the version of yourself you thought you had to be. Each flight will ask you to shed another layer, to drop another burden, to trust more deeply than before. This is not regression, this is expansion. Every shedding is sacred. You shed illusions, you shed attachments, you shed roles you never truly agreed to, and one by one you return to the center of who you are, vast, open, free. And when you return there, the world begins to look different. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer perform, you presence. You no longer grasp, you allow. You no longer ask, how do I control this? But instead, what is this here to teach me? This is what it means to live from soul. And soul does not carry the past like a wound. It carries only the present like a flame. In that flame, everything that is false will burn away, and that is the grace of it. You are not being punished, you are being purified. All that is being asked of you is this: stop carrying what you don't want to become. If you hold resentment, you become it. If you carry fear, it becomes your lens. If you grip the past, it becomes your prison. But if you hold truth, you become peace. If you carry stillness, you become presence. If you walk in surrender, you become weightless. And when you become weightless, you don't even have to try to fly. You simply rise, like a feather no longer pinned down by ego, like a breath finally released into the world, like a soul no longer apologizing for its light. This is your destiny, not to strive, not to suffer, but to rise. And this rising cannot be done from effort alone. It must be done from trust. Trust that life is not working against you, it is working through you. That every detour was a redirection, that every heartbreak was a doorway, that every ending was a sacred invitation to begin again lighter this time. Have you noticed how nature never clings? The trees release their leaves without asking when the new ones will come. The river flows forward, never backward, never doubting its direction. The sun does not mourn the night, it simply returns again and again. And yet, we, the most conscious of creation, resist this natural rhythm. We hold on to last season's leaves. We grip the banks of the past. We beg the night not to fall. But healing is in the rhythm, and peace is in the release. So stop trying to force stillness through control. Allow it through surrender. Stop demanding that life obey your timeline. Let it unfold according to the greater wisdom that forms stars and births galaxies. That same wisdom is guiding your unfolding. You don't need to rush. You don't need to fight. You don't need to earn your flight. You only need to step out of the illusion that you were ever grounded to begin with. Your spirit was never bound. It was only your identification with the binding that made you feel stuck. It is not your job to carry every lesson forever. Some lessons are meant to be learned and then released. Some pains are meant to be felt and then transmuted. And some experiences are meant to pass through you, not stay inside you. Release is not rejection. It is integration. You take the wisdom. You leave the wound. You take the growth. You leave the guilt. You take the lesson. You leave the label. You are not who you were when the pain happened. You are who you became after it. And the more you release the story, the more you can honor the strength it gave you without needing to keep reliving the scene. You cannot write a new chapter while rereading the old one. And you cannot fly into your future while defending the architecture of your past. So breathe now. Breathe and ask your soul, what am I defending that I no longer even believe in? Because that is where the heaviest weights hide in old beliefs you don't even resonate with anymore. Beliefs like, I must be perfect. I'm not worthy unless I achieve. I'm only lovable if I'm needed. I can't rest until I've proven something. These beliefs are not you. They are inherited, adopted, programmed. And they are optional. Choose again. Choose freedom over form. Choose essence over expectation. Choose truth over tradition. You do not owe anyone the version of you that you've outgrown. Your only allegiance is to your becoming. And becoming requires lightness. Becoming requires courage. Becoming requires space. And above all, becoming requires letting go. There is nothing left to prove. No weight left worth carrying. You have already survived what was meant to break you. You are here, and you are free to choose peace, not someday, but now. So put it all down. the apology that never came, the identity that no longer fits, the guilt that was never yours, the grief you've already honored, the expectations that exhaust you, the fear that says you're not ready. Let it all fall. Because the moment you stop gripping the past, the future no longer frightens you. And the moment you stop defending the pain, healing finds you without effort. You don't need to chase purpose. You are purpose. Once you stop covering it up with everything you think you must be, the sky does not explain itself to the ground. It just opens wide, blue, boundless. So must you. Your lightness is your truth. Your peace is your power. And your freedom is already here beneath the weight you are finally willing to release. So rise. You're ready. Let go and fly.